we are going to do a Pilates workout today. So it's just going to be some really basic stuff. So if you haven't tried my classes or haven't tried Pilates before, you can get a really nice basic workout from it and get a feel for what Pilates is all about and what you can expect from a class. So we're going to start by lying on your back. Most of the Pilates classes that I teach are mat based, so we'll be doing a lot of stuff lying on your back, lying on your side and onto all fours. Now the main thing I want you to think about here, Pilates is all about, correct alignment, correct technique while engaging a nice strong center. So that's what we're going to start with. Have your feet about hip width apart. So if you're not sure where that is, bring your feet together, turn your toes out, and then bring your heels into a parallel position. It's roughly just inside of the hip bone and the hip joint. So your knees, hips, so your ankles, knees and hips are in a nice alignment. So we're not rolling in or out with those knees. So I really want you to try and ground your feet and imagine that you've got 2 glasses of wine on top of your knees. It doesn't have to be wine, whatever drink you want to have on your knees. You want to be able to drink it at the end of the session. So you don't want to be spilling any of that drink. You want to be able to drink it so your knees stay nice and firm and up towards the ceiling. Bring your hands down by your side, and if you do want to place your hands just onto your hips, and just find a neutral position for your pelvis. So sometimes it's quite nice to have your fingertips on your hips and your thumbs onto your ribs. So if your thumbs and your fingertips are close together, you might be tucking under too much. And if you can't reach your ribs with your thumbs, then you might be overarching. So it's just finding that position in between those 2 points where you're not overarched or you're not pressing the back into your mat. So it's roughly just be able to place your fingertips underneath the small of your back and the mat. Then drop the shoulder blades down, release your hands and have a neutral spine. You're going to focus on keeping that position. Take a deep breath in. Now as you exhale, pull your belly button towards the spine and start to lift the muscles of the pelvic floor without changing that position. So it's almost as if you're wearing a tight pair of jeans and you're trying to do them up. So you're scooping everything in the pelvic floor and pulling your belly button towards the spine. Now you're going to try and keep that engagement throughout your breathing and throughout the exercises. It takes quite a lot to get the hang of when you first start Pilates. So what I want you to think about is before you make a movement, pull your belly button in, lift the muscles of the pelvic floor. So you're creating that strong foundation. Bring your hands down by your side. Take a deep breath. Exhale, pull the belly button in, lift the muscles of the pelvic floor. Keep them engaged. Continue to breathe in and out. So you're pulling the belly button in, lift the muscles of the pelvic floor. So it can be quite challenging, so try and persevere with it and try and engage in your everyday life. So when you're brushing your teeth, when you're cooking, when you're sitting, when you're standing, think about pull the belly button in, lift the muscles of the pelvic floor. And the more you do it, the more those muscles will start to actively engage automatically. You won't even have to think about it. So let's start your pelvic tilt. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, engage those tummy muscles, slightly squeeze the bottom, tuck your tailbone and gradually peel your spine up off the mat. So you're coming up bit by bit, no higher than your shoulder blades. Make sure those knees aren't rolling in or out. You're grounding your feet, knees, hips and shoulders in a nice straight line. Breathing in as you hold. Exhale, scoop the tummy muscles, lower the spine down bit by bit. So again, try and lengthen the vertebrae down. Just move my hands so you can see all the way down until your tailbone is the last thing to land onto the mat. So you can really take your time. Now I'm talking you through the Pilates breath, but I just want you to breathe. Take some nice deep breaths, breathe normally. The main focus today is just on engaging the tummy muscles while adding a movement in. So just keep a nice easy breath going. Let's continue. Pull the belly button in, lift the muscles off the pelvic floor. Ground your feet, tuck your tailbone. Gradually peel the spine up off the mat. Usually your movement is on your exhale. Breathe in as you hold. Now as you breathe in, let's start to add on a little bit more, only if you want to and feel ready to. Arms come up above the head as you breathe in. Then as you exhale, start to bring those arms back up and over, start to lower the spine down bit by bit. So again, your spine is lengthening and releasing down until your tailbone is the last thing to land, and then the hands come back down by your side. Now if you have any ailments in the spine, you may find that it comes down in chunks, and that's absolutely fine. You're just listening to the body and trying to mobilize the spine as much as you can. Pull the belly button in, lift the muscles of the pelvic floor, tuck your tailbone, gradually peel the spine up, bit by bit, no higher than your shoulder blades. Breathing in, float the arms up and above the head, and if you can, rise up onto your toes, lift the heels up off the floor. This is optional. Then lower your heels, bring those arms up and over, gradually lower the spine down bit by bit. Tailbone is the last thing to land, hands back down by your side. One more time. Arms and feet are optional, stay with the pelvic tilts if you need to. Exhale, scoop those tummy muscles, tuck the tailbone, gradually peel the spine up bit by bit. As you breathe in, you're going to rise onto the toes, bring those arms up and over. This is going to create an unstable base, so it makes it more challenging. Then as you exhale, lower the heels, bring the arms up and over, gradually lowering the spine down bit by bit until your tailbone is the last thing to land onto the mat. Then give those knees a little bit of a hug and release. Now let's move into a different position so you get a feel for another Pilates exercise in a different position. So we are going to come round onto all fours. Hands are below the shoulders, knees are below your hips. Now again, try and make sure you've got a nice strong stable base. So spread your fingertips, and if you look down to your knees, you should be able to fit at least one, if not two tennis balls between your knees. So if your knees are together, you haven't got a nice stable base, you can wobble side to side, and that's when you start to get a little bit out of control with the exercises. If you've got a nice wide base, you've got a nice wide base and stable base to go from. Try not to dip, try not to round. So you're trying to find a neutral spine in between those 2 points. Pull your shoulder blades down the back. Now engaging the tummy muscles is exactly the same. So you pull your belly button in, lift the muscles of the pelvic floor. We're going to start with a Superman, but just the lower body. So as you exhale and engage, I want you to imagine somebody is pulling your big toe and you just slide your leg out. So try not to shift if you can. Try and just slide that leg out from underneath you and then add a lift. Breathe in as the leg returns, and again it's just placing that knee down underneath the hips. As you exhale and engage, other leg. Imagine somebody is pulling on your big toe, so it literally just glides out from underneath you. Imagine somebody is still continuing to pull on that big toe, add a lift. We're not going so high that we're dipping. We're just coming to hip height or lower, keeping a neutral core, neutral pelvis, and engage. Then we return. Changing sides. This time, if you want to, opposite arm to leg. Lengthen, reach and extend through the fingertips, through the toes. Coming back into neutral and change. That's optional, you don't have to add the arm in if you don't want to.